Thank you very much. Can we all hear? Can you all hear me? Lovely stuff. Right, Glasgow, how are we? That was shit. Come on, how are we? That's a bit better. That's a bit better. So I'm here to talk to you today about a guide on breaking into penetration testing. Won't turn around again. Guide to breaking into penetration testing, or as I like to call it, how to get away with hacking. Now, I'll start this off with my journey into it. We're going to hear from a few other people as well. There's three, now ex-colleagues of mine who have all gone on to do weird and wonderful stuff in their own right. But we'll start off with the obligatory, who am I? I'm a lead penetration tester at KPMG. A check team leader in both app and inf, chartered cybersecurity professional, and a supermodel. Well, okay, so the last one, not quite so much, but I'm holding out hope. I'm holding out hope. But today, I'm not really here to talk to you about this Liam. I'm here to talk to you about this one. That's what I looked like before, well, cyber got to me. In 2017, which was 8 years ago, which is an entirely terrifying prospect, I was these things. I was a martial arts instructor. I worked at Costa Coffee, so I could technically call myself a barista if this is going to want to work. Look at that. And then I was a very, very bad sixth form student. In fact, I was such a bad sixth form student, I was asked to leave my sixth form because I wrote a very shitty DOS script that may or may not have knocked over a computer. I'm still not quite sure what the statute of limitations is on that, so if anyone's watching this on the recording, this is all allegedly. As a result of being asked to leave my sixth form, I had to spend an extra year in sixth form. I ended up spending 3 years having to do effectively year 12 twice, which is miserable, and I would not recommend doing that. If you can, please stay in school and don't do what I did, because that could have ended very, very badly. If anyone wants to hear the full, unredacted and not very allegedly story, I can fill you in over a few beers later. Martial arts, as it so happens, was quite useful, and I'll get on to exactly why it was so useful in a little bit. And it's not just for strangling my boss unconscious, but I did do that once, and again, if you buy me a beer, I will tell you that story. Moving on to 2019, bit of a disclaimer, smoking is very cool, but also very bad for you, so don't do it. I was now an apprentice at a company in Leeds called Pentest People. Pentest People, it was made by the founders of Random Storm, which is a company some of you may have heard of, or you may in fact have heard of Pentest People themselves. And I managed to wrangle myself an apprenticeship there. I had successfully completed the bandit levels of Over the Wire, if anyone's heard of them. They're awesome in getting kind of Linux fundamentals. Again, we'll get onto a bit more of the actual guidance in a second. And that picture was taken about 3 weeks before the descent into cybersecurity happened. Fast forward to 2020, I was still an apprentice. I'd learned a little bit more about doing makeup, clearly. Goodness me. And I'd got my first legitimate critical finding on an application security assessment. I was starting to edge into kind of application security testing, which is kind of where I ended up. I also kind of started describing myself as a bit of a hacker since then. I'd always struggled with the term because I was very new to the industry. I didn't really know a lot, and I was quite intimidated by people who knew far more than me. But I started identifying with a hacker. Of course, in 2020, COVID happened, which blew a bit of a hole in the whole kind of career development thing. But here we go. Ooh. Look at that. Oh, more makeup. Goodness me. That was terrifying. You wouldn't want that walking at you down a dark alley, would you? You'd run away screaming. I then took a bit of a career change, and I became a service development consultant. So I started building services for Pentest People. One of those services ended up becoming a new company called Dark Invader. I didn't really like that, though. That wasn't what I wanted to go and do. I wanted to go and be a pen tester. That was really what I wanted to kind of work towards, and I loved hacking. I always had loved hacking, and while that was great fun and I learned a lot about it, it wasn't what I wanted to do. So that's me with any car fans in here? Silence. Oh dear. Where's Andy Gill when you need him? Bloody hell. So that's my baby at the time was a little MX-5. I just passed the CTL app exam, or CSTL app. Everyone know what that is? some people. Lovely. It's a kind of 8-hour, well, 6 to 8 hour exam that you have to go and sit down in Cheltenham. NCSE, if you pass it, NCSE effectively go and say, yes, you can go and run engagements against critical national infrastructure for us. You'll become a check team leader. The NCSE's check scheme, I'd recommend Googling it. If you want to get into pen testing, that's definitely something you'll have to kind of come across. Was there any DC 151 folks in here? 1, 2, yeah, a few. Lovely. I routinely started going to that, which resulted in several hungover work days. Again, we'll get on to that, but the Rochi, is Rochi in here? No, he's not. He's a terrible influence, and you should all buy many, many beers after this, so you get to experience it. Boom. And this is me in 2023. That is a John the Ripper t-shirt, which was actually a hint that I run a CTF, and that t-shirt was a hint. I meant to wear it today, but I completely forgot. I was running around this week. So. I'd managed to make myself into a team leader at Pentest People. I then, halfway through 2023, went and became a manager at KPMG, which is where I work now. And then, oh, look at that, beautiful bald bonds. And then 2024 comes around, get my CTL in, still a manager, and then 2025, here I am speaking to all of you. That's a bit of a whistle-stop tour, and I promise that wasn't just humble bragging. I will be calling back to all of that and exactly how I went about and did that over the next, 50 minutes or so. Tickle all this. I meant to take these off, but I didn't. More pictures of young Liam. If Roach was in here, I was going to bully him for liking feet pics, but he's not, so I'll spare him that. If you're watching this later, Roach, we all know. We're going to go over some techie bits. There's some less techie bits. Then there's some completely non-technical bits. Then there's other stories as well. And then there may, in fact, be more pictures of young Liam. And I'll promise to keep my socks on. So the techie bits. This is probably the bit that most people were expecting, right? When you come to a talk like this, you see it on LinkedIn, loads or quite often at least, and what you'll see is just a big long list of you need to go and become a hack the box top 0.0001%. You need to go to try hack me and become the super elite god tier mode or whatever it is. You need to be able to recite the Web App Hackers Handbook backwards and in Elvish, and if you can't do any of those, fuck off out of our industry. Of course, none of those things are true, and that's not what I'm here today to talk to you about. You know, there are basic technical skills that you will need. Pen testing is a technical industry. I'm yet to meet somebody who describes themselves as a non-technical pen tester, but when I do, I shall be throwing something rather weighty in their direction because they don't exist. It's not. That's just nonsense. So the techie bits. This is, as I said, this is the only actual training list that you're going to see throughout this. There's over the wire, Black Hat Python, try hack me or hack the box and poor swigger. These aren't, I'm not giving you these for the reason you might think, and please, dear God, don't take away from this talk that you need to go and rush through all of these and you must be, again, as I said, top 0.001% on any of these platforms. You don't at all. That's not really what pen testing is. CTFs and pen testing, very, very different things. However, when you get into your first interview, and I know, well, as Isaac sat down here at the front, who just suffered through our interview process, well, hopefully didn't suffer, but you get the point, that a lot of those will be CTFs, right? It's the easiest way that companies have found to test someone's technical ability is to give them a box on Hack the Box or a CTF they've written themselves and to go off and to try and sit that. So whilst one does not necessarily make you better at the other, and in fact I've met some very good pen testers that are not very good CTF players, and conversely some very good CTF players who make awful pen testers. You do still have to have enough of that skill to get through any of the technical challenges that you may be presented with when you first go and step into that interview. Over the wire, I'll teach you Linux fundamentals, which unfortunately everybody needs to know, or fortunately everyone needs to know. Right, hands up who's a Nano user? Okay, what about Vim? We're going to be friends. Fuck Nano. Sorry. And then port swigger. Any aspiring application testers out there? 1, I like you already. 2, legend. Yeah, no, okay. Get head shakes there. Never mind. Andrew, really disappointed you didn't put your hand up there. We'll be having words afterwards. Portswig is the leading authority on application security testing, effectively. The research team there, run by James Kettle, comes out with, I think they've been at Black Hat every year for years and years and years, always presenting something new. They do race conditions, or they do other kind of wild stuff. They do email parser confusion. Somebody actually read the RFCs for emails, which is something that no poor person should ever have to do, but alas, they did, and they found a load of vulnerabilities in it. And all of those will help to build those technical skills. The next technical piece of advice is, who here knows how to code? Just very, very basic level. I'm not talking like you know 10x engineer. Yeah, good. Does a good pen tester necessarily need to know how to code? Well, no. Does a great one? Yes. If you can't write code, it's a lot easier now. You can use ChatGPT, and then you just have to do a bit of bug fixing. In fact, you can use ChatGPT to debug the program that ChatGPT wrote, which gets a bit trippy. But the language doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if it's Ruby or Lua or Python or PHP or whatever it is. Making sure that you learn a little bit of a programming language is enough that you can start to problem solve things very quickly. Eventually, your tools kind of run out. They stop being as useful, and being able to just write quick scripts that can solve complex problems for you comes in really, really, really handy. And again, that'll make you stand out. If you've got a little bit of a GitHub that you can throw tools up onto, the things you've written, they don't have to be, be the next crazy, it's not the next Mimikatz or the next CrackMap exec. It doesn't have to be. It just has to be something that you can demonstrate that you can approach a problem logically and solve it by code that you, or in reality, ChatGPT, has actually written. In fact, recently I had a pen test. You might have been involved in it, actually. Were you on the burp extension one? No, that wasn't you. Okay. So we were on a pen test recently where we had to write our own burp extension because of some functionality on the app, but didn't like how it was active scanning. So again, we had to use that code to solve a problem that enabled us to deliver a test on time, and it does become very, very, very important. In fact, there's going to be a practical example of this now. Who here knows about cross-site scripting? Oh, lovely. Now, cross-site scripting, the cross-site scripting is probably one of my, if not my favorite vulnerability. And my poor colleagues who are sat at the front there have listened to me wax lyrical about this on and on and on and on and on and on and on. But here's a story about a particularly spicy reflected cross-site scripting that was discovered in tandem with a colleague of mine who now works at Pentest Partners called Kieran. Kieran, if you're watching this, I hope you're doing well, buddy. Thanks for Kieran for letting me use this as well. We discovered a reflected cross-site scripting vulnerability. So for the uninitiated, that's where you send a request and the data you send is reflected in the body of the response, right? And that means we can execute arbitrary JavaScript on somebody's endpoint, which we can do all kinds of nasty things with. Commonly, though, the payload that people use is alert1, and it'll pop a little box up on the screen, and you see a little 1 on it. If you've ever messed around on any of the lab training platforms, you'll probably have seen that. Unfortunately, alert1 doesn't actually demonstrate a lot of risk. It doesn't demonstrate a lot of value, and it doesn't really prove the point that we're trying to prove. And especially if you're interfacing with like a non-technical client, which is painful enough as in itself, you will need to be able to put it in terms that they can understand. And the easiest way to do that is do something impactful, compromise an account, steal some credentials. So that's a bit small, isn't it? Basically, the injection payload we had was inside something that JSON.dumps had been being run on. So it was taking a string and taking a JSON object and then dumping that into a string. So it does some things like escaping certain characters. So we can't then go and break out of things. And it was doing weird stuff with double quotes and single quotes. And basically, it was getting in our way and really hacking me off. No, nobody. Fucking waste of time, Jesus. But anyway, this is kind of the point that we're trying to make, is even if you try and bypass it with extra backslashes and so on and so forth, trying to be clever, it doesn't work. It still does that, and what we were effectively getting reflected was this, which was breaking. It wasn't giving us our execution. I was getting really frustrated. Kieran was getting really frustrated. And then we came across this mess. God, that is awful, isn't it? String from char code and then loads of different char codes, and that'll return you a string object. hacking fools and breaking rules. Side note, do not allow hacking fools and breaking rules to appear in your pen test report because the clients don't like that. They assume they are the fool and you are also breaking things. Word of advice, free word of advice. So we now have our string there. We grab our array. I will spare you the code with me, but effectively, this is just localhost. Because we're pen testers, we can use localhost. Localhost is also trusted by browsers, so if you don't have to spin up a HTTPS server, and it'll be allowed, so nice and easy for us. Document.cookie grabs the cookies, including the authentication cookie. Hacking fools, and then we can concat these two things together. And so we get this, obviously lovelily redacted thing, jQuery.get, that string, .concat, document.cookie, and that worked perfectly. I don't know why I'm pointing over there, the signal receiver's here. It was very silly. And you can see here, we've got all the cookies, get/geos there. Perfect. So we've demonstrated our vulnerability, and we could only do that because because we knew how to code, right? We knew what all of this stuff was doing, so we could go off and demonstrate that. And my boss at the time, Alex, Alex Arkandakis, he loved that. He was very impressed, and he bought me a beer afterwards, which was great. Those are the technical bits. So again, in short, learn how to code a little bit. Don't try and become the most crazy programmer ever, but just learn enough. Learn enough about CTFs that you can pass a technical exam. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of by and large what I'd recommend. And then practice your technical skills again. Find your platform that you like to use. Go off and do that. But that's, again, those bits normally come very, very easy to people. In fact, I've purposely cut out a lot of the technical advice from this talk because if you're passionate about it and you're interested in the industry and so on and so forth, you'll actually find that bit quite easy to go off and do, and you'll do it in your spare time. That's not the important bit. The important bit is these bits, because this is the bit that I find a lot of junior people cock up all the time. So don't cock them up. The other thing that you need to do is, who here takes notes about everything they do? Few hands. Not as many hands as we need to be seeing. Right, take notes about everything, all right? What do you use to take notes? Notion. More Notion users? Yeah, maybe one or two, cool. I use Obsidian because I found it easier to hook up to GitHub. Yeah, I got a thumbs up at the back there, lovely. 2 thumbs up, beautiful. Again, I like Obsidian. I think it works slightly better for me. You can, again, hook it up to GitHub really, really easily, and it's all in Markdown. It's nice. You can copy and paste them. In fact, I know you both have been sent big, massive, long Markdown forms before of my mad ramblings on various topics. But take notes about everything and be really militant about taking notes about everything. Don't just rush through a pen test and go and try and remember what you were doing on the Monday, on the Friday. Don't do that. You'll cock something up. You'll forget. You won't have the time, and you'll start losing knowledge. Pen testing is very, very broad and quite deep, and you're going to start forgetting things. In fact, I'm confident that I've forgotten more about pen testing than I currently remember. As a result of this, I didn't actually take notes for the first 2 years of my career, and I just tried to keep it all up here, and that went horribly. It caused me great amounts of stress, and well, in fact, it cost me all my hair, as you can clearly see in front of you. The beautiful bonce that is no more. Oh well. Take notes. Make sure you take notes. Another thing is events like this one. Make sure that you're coming to events like this one. Who here, is this anyone's first kind of cyber event? Yeah, a few people's, yep. Anyone regular? Yeah, I better be seeing your hand up at the back there, goodness. Make sure you get to things like this. Make sure you get networking. I actually got my current job at KPMG because I was sat in a pub in Leeds, which happens probably more often than it should. And I got chatting to a guy called Aaron, who now works with Andy actually at CrowdStrike, and he said, "Oh yeah, I love KPMG. I think that the team's really good there." And so when the recruiter eventually called me and said, "Hey, do you want to come and work for them?" I said yes, as a result of that. As a result of that networking, and I think there have been other instances where people we've met through conferences and so on and so forth have been kind of poached, and we've managed to steal them and get them to start working for us, and other people and other kind of parts of the industry as well, which is good. Be warned. That's rather intimidating, isn't it? Warning. I should have. Could somebody pull the fire alarm? That would really have made that pop. Don't do that. Don't do that. I'm not having anybody coming and attacking me for that. Who here wants to be a hacker? Yeah, a few people. Cool. Yeah, a little bit. Sound pretty cool? Yeah, maybe. A lot of people want to be a hacker. In fact, when we opened up our entry-level application, we got 100 applicants, it was 70 applicants in about 3 days. Which is again quite a lot, and there were a lot of kind of auto rejects that didn't even make it into that pile if you weren't willing to relocate to Leeds, for example, which got sent packing. But it's very, very uncompetitive. It's also not really a standard 9 to 5. If you are going to have to be working outside of that, again we'll touch on how you do that healthily in a second. But it is outside your 9 to 5. To excel, but to maintain your competitive edge. Pentesting is also really complex, because IT is very complex, and IT is getting more and more complex. Even when I started, my first apprenticeship, there were a number of web frameworks. Again, mainly app guy. I do a bit of infrastructure every now and then, but as Andrew knows, I run away from it every chance I get. There was a few web frameworks. Now there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and all the JavaScript frameworks that come out. There's a new bloody React framework every other week that does something slightly different. And again, it's just getting more and more and more complex, and the amount of knowledge that you need to obtain in a relatively short amount of time is getting kind of wider and wider and wider. It is getting easier to do some of the training, but it's also getting a lot harder to get in. I know Rosie's talk earlier today was all about how enshittification, which is such a fucking good word, isn't it? Enshittification of the industry, and how that's starting to impact people. And if you're trying to get into it, that's going to start to impact you. But as I said, it's very deep. It's very broad, and becoming a specialist in everything is just not possible anymore. You can't be a kind of hacking specialist in everything. At least I don't believe so. I'm yet to meet somebody who would describe himself as an expert in every single area of IT, or indeed pen testing. And if I do meet them, I will be challenging them on that fact. Challenging them to a duel. Really enjoying the fact that I've got a laser pointer as well, if you can't tell. I keep getting distracted by it. Boom. Like a cat running around. There's also reporting, which is a big part of being a pen tester. Who here likes writing reports? Liar. All right, you might not be lying, actually. But reporting is a big part of it. That's a big part of what you're going to be getting yourself into. You're going to be spending a lot of your time writing, talking to clients, talking to engineers, a lot of time reading documentation. I know if I ever need to fall asleep quickly, I'll just pull out like a good Linux doc and just start reading the man pages, and then wake up 6 hours later going, oh, bloody hell, that was a good nap. Travel as well. Who here likes traveling for work? Likes traveling for work? Yeah? Okay, fair enough. Yeah, but to be fair, you don't count. I'm not a massive fan of it. We have to do it because of the kind of Czech stuff, but traveling for work, spending a week in a data center, then going to a hotel after the data center, then it's just all a bit miserable. It's all a bit miserable. But again, it's not all bad. You do get to hack stuff while you're there, which is quite fun. Exams. Who here likes exams? And I know you're all lying if you put your hand up here. You like exams? You like exams? Seriously? Wild. I hate exams. I get really, really stressed for my exams. And I mentioned earlier the CTL exams. There's a few exams if you get into pen testing that you will be kind of expected to at some point probably sit. That's not the OSCP. If I hear anybody banging on about that again, I'll throw something at them as well. It's a fine exam. It demonstrates some things. It will get you past. It will get you an interview. It's not the be-all and end-all. I've met people with OSCP who are very good testers. I've met people with OSCP who are shocking testers. I wouldn't trust them to hold my luggage, never mind conduct a pen test for me. But again, there are some exams, and some of those exams are quite hard. I know everyone here a Czech team member? Yeah, okay, cool. So check team member, that's an entry level kind of beginning of the industry exam. And again, challenging, you do have to learn a lot, you have to demonstrate a lot. CSTL or CCT, again, those exams are quite hard, and there are harder exams than that to get onto things like the CBEST scheme, which is run by the Bank of England. So if you ever want to pretend to be North Korea against some of our largest financial institutions, which is a really cool job, you have to go and become part of the CBEST scheme, become CBEST accredited, and those exams are really, really, really hard. And they take months and months and months of revision and practice. So if anybody thinks that they get out of uni, get their cyber degree, a shiny piece of paper, and run into the industry going, yes, I never have to sit another exam, you've got another thing coming to you, I'm afraid. It's tough, in short, for all of those reasons. But hopefully that hasn't put you off or scared the shit out of you too much. And we can now tell you not to be scared. Warning, don't be scared. Like lullabies. I should have added audio to this, really. Oh, well. Here's the other side. A lot of that can be quite intimidating, right? Spending a lot of time on the road, a lot of time away from people, a lot of time in data centers, a lot of time revising for exams, struggling. People describe their first few months in pen testing, and this is a bit of a bugbear of mine. Maybe I should have mentioned this earlier. People who say, oh, I've got imposter syndrome when they're 3 months into being a pen testing role. It's like, you don't have imposter syndrome, you're just really bad. But that's fine, right? I was really bad when I was 3 months in as well. It's really hard. It's really hard to get into. There's a lot of very deep technical knowledge you need to acquire. Being bad is okay. You're not an well, you are an imposter, but you need to work on not being an imposter, not trying to convince yourself you're not an imposter. Anyway. I'm not a psychologist, if you couldn't tell. But I think ultimately what you need is perseverance. Anyone here would describe themselves as being able to persevere? Yeah, a few people. Yeah, no? Anyone here give up immediately as soon as it's hard? No. Sorry. If my employer's watching, I'm lying. That's also not the camera, that's the projector. The camera's over there, so it's not going well for me. The one thing you need is perseverance. I know I mentioned earlier martial arts. Anyone here do martial arts? Or have ever done martial arts? Yeah, a few people. Okay. I think martial arts are very, very good for yourself. It's good to, it's exercise, which is obviously good for you. It also teaches you, hopefully you never have to use it, or if you do have to use it, it's strangling your cheeky boss. Oops. Again, it's a good story, promise. It teaches you that perseverance. It teaches you how to kind of go through difficult things, and that is very, very valuable when you're approaching something that's as challenging as trying to learn lots of technical knowledge very, very quickly. Hacking, there's a famous phrase actually in martial arts, which is a black belt's just a white belt who never quit. Right? You kept turning up. When I first went for, I won't click back to it because we're many slides in now. But there was a slide of me getting awarded my second Dan, right? That was one of in 2017, which I was very, very proud of. It took me a long time to get there. The first time I went for that exam, I failed it by half a mark. The pass mark was 90. I scored 89.5. And I was the only one out of the 5 of us from my club that had gone for it that didn't get it. I remember being you're just broken inside. Like you've trained so hard for it. You're in the best shape of your life, and you miss by that much. It's heartbreaking. But again, somehow didn't give up, and then got it awarded, and I became an instructor instead. It was very, very rewarding. And hacking's quite similar. In fact, hacking's a bit like Tesco's. Every little helps. Okay, I need to work on the comedy. I'll get better, I promise. Spending 10 minutes a day is much better than spending no time at all, just doing a little bit. Now for the non-techie bits. Now, I was umming and ahhing about including some of these, but they are very important. Now, similarly to martial arts, or I did triathlons for a little while as well. Anyone here heard of the Hathersage Hilly? Silence. Okay, cool. Never mind. Wrong part of the country, really. But that's a little triathlon down in Hathersage. It's a little village outside of Sheffield. Lovely, very scenic. I'd recommend going. The pool's heated as well, so it's an outdoor pool, but it's heated, so it's nice. All of these bits, again, as I said, the kind of non-technical elements. As I was running to my hotel last night after the pub because somebody dragged me out and forced red wine down my neck. It was me, but the non-technical elements become very, very important because as with the exercise, you're trying to become a high-performance athlete, but you're using your brain, not your body. The two are quite related, though. It's why sports people do have sports psychologists. They're working on their mentality. You're using your brain. That's how you feed yourself. That's how you earn your money. And there's some other bits that come along with that about how both are connected. So the first thing is learn to cook. I cocked this up. Who here likes cooking? Yeah, a few people. Oh, okay, more than I was expecting. Nice. Bummer, isn't it? And they were right. Oh, goodness, that's a bit blown up. I promise that looks nicer if you actually see the proper photograph of it. But learning how to kind of cook for yourself, making sure that you are eating right, getting the right amounts of sleep, things like this. It sucks. It's a bit boring. But it is, again, you are effectively trying to become a performance athlete, but you're using your brain. And the healthier you are, the more energy you'll have, the better you'll be able to go and perform in the kind of cerebral realm as well. Exercise. Poor guy. Anyone here do jiu-jitsu? Ever done jiu-jitsu? Anyone here know Andy, you did jiu-jitsu. Nice. Talk about that. Or tearing other people's ACLs. Yeah, that's me rolling for something called an inside heel hook, which basically tries to break the knee or tear most of the ligaments in the knee. It's a bit of a brutal move. I didn't do that to him. He was a lot better than me. He kind of went, no, stop that, and kind of rolled me over and strangled me. And well, anyway, but it takes all sorts. Depends what you're into. Go for it. But it doesn't really matter. Make sure you're just doing a little bit of something. Again, also because it helps take your mind off things. You know, it's quite difficult to. I like martial arts because it takes your mind off stuff. It's very difficult to think about what Jerry from The Office said to you over lunch, and you're like, I fucking hate Jerry. Fuck Jerry. When somebody's trying to punch you in the face, because you'll be like, fuck Jerry, and someone will hit you, and you'll be like, oh shit, there's this cunt. Right, come on. But again, it takes the mind off of it. It makes it a lot easier to then go back in the next day with a fresh perspective because you've had that time off, and exercise is a really good way of doing that. Hobbies. Any Hearthstone players in here? Oh, lovely. Nice. You play Hearthstone? Oh, nice. Okay. We need to talk about that, definitely. I love playing video games. I know, complete shocker, guy in IT loves playing video games. Nobody saw that coming, but alas. But yeah, I like playing Hearthstone. That was me achieving Wild Legend. Look at that, 742. I wish that was more impressive than it was. Oh well. Some people call it a waste of time, but it helps me switch off, so that's good. And then Skyrim or Oblivion Remastered, yeah? Few people, nice. They just dropped that out of nowhere, didn't they? Bloody hell. But have something that's not IT. Have something you can do that you can switch off. Because again, most people in here who want to be pen testers, who want to get into the industry, are actually quite excited and enjoy what they do, right? You rarely, maybe slightly more commonly now, but rarely will you join pen testing and not actually really enjoy it. And so you're going to need to find something outside of that to help you switch off. And it's very, very important. Otherwise, all the burnout and the nasties and so on and so forth that we all hear about kind of people having to take long-term sick or getting very ill themselves, not having something outside of that is a big part of why people it all gets a bit too much. You don't have that space to switch off and you end up stressed all the time. And again, not a psychologist, but I hear stress is bad for you. Actually, it's time for Iron Brew and whiskey. Oh, any whiskey fans in here? Yeah, a few, yeah. Oh, we're gonna be friends. We're going to be friends. Lovely. Other paths. So I've talked to you about kind of my route into the industry, or my slow descent into being fat and bald, as my sister kindly called it. Thanks, Erin. Again, camera's still over there. Here are some other paths and other routes in. So I was an apprentice. I'm a big fan of apprenticeships. I think apprenticeships are really good. Apprenticeships aren't for everybody, though. You kind of have to know what you want to do at 18, which, fortunately, or 19 in my case. Fortunately, I did. I knew I wanted to go and do IT and cyber, and pen testing naturally fell into that because of my reprobate behavior. That's difficult to say fast, isn't it? Reprobate behavior in high school. But a lot of people don't know that. They don't know what they want to do, and if you don't know what you want to do, I'd suggest probably not doing an apprenticeship because you are a bit more locked in about what you are going to end up doing if you do go down that path. And again, they're a little bit more narrow, and we are working on it, trying to make sure employers value apprenticeships in the same way degrees do, but currently they're not. That's just the fact of it. And if you do have an apprenticeship and not a degree, and the apprenticeship is not in something you want to end up going and doing, you are unfortunately just a little bit further behind in the queue. Like if somebody's got a maths degree or a geography degree, there's a lot of doors that kind of opens or leaves slightly ajar that having an apprenticeship in marketing just won't have that same kind of reach, even though there are a lot of transferable skills. Again, it's something that we need to fix, but to be frank, that's just the case of it. So I'm going to talk to you today about Charlie. Charlie was a marine biologist. I don't know if anybody knows anything about marine biology, but it has fuck all to do with computers. He then became a SOC analyst. Any SOC analysts in the room? Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Okay, cool. A few people. And he got into the SOC because he wanted to, he knew he wanted to get into cyber. He thought the industry was pretty cool. There's no jobs in marine biology in Leeds because it's the furthest place from the sea. So quite why he went and did that, I'm not sure, and I haven't got a straight answer out of him yet for it. But anyway, he became a SOC analyst and he started working there. And then we both got hired by the company Pentest people, and he became a junior pentester along with the rest of us. He then went off and passed his kind of check team member exam, which again is a tricky exam to go and pass. It's dedicated, it demonstrates that you have some knowledge and a kind of fundamental knowledge of pen testing. And now he works as a manager in Samurai Security. Have anyone ever heard of that? They're a kind of small boutique in the Leeds area. They've got a really cool logo though. It's like someone with a samurai sword. I'm very jealous every time I see it. I'm like, God, that's pretty good. I wish I had that. Oh well, maybe I should just buy a sword. Do you think they'd let me in? Rosie, do you think they'd let me in with a sword? No. Okay, never mind. It's worth a shot. So, the Scottish Ironbrew and whiskey does work. And that's just Charlie's story. And so you don't have to come from a traditional background at all. He kind of came in as a SOC analyst and then realized that he wanted to be a pen tester instead. But again, marine biology. We call him fish scientist, but with the PH, because I thought that was quite funny when I'd had a few beers. But so yeah, fish scientist or Charlie, as he's known. And now as he said, now he's a manager in a pen testing firm in Leeds. It's all backgrounds. Next one is Jasmine. Jasmine. She was never technically a junior pen tester, which was quite wild, really, but very, 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 very good. She started in the Merchant Navy, which is, again, fuck all to do with computers. And then she worked in a solicitor's office. And then she got on a graduate course for pen testing, again, one of the old companies I used to work for. And then during that graduate course, she went and passed her CTM, which was quite impressive, really, given that, again, came from the Merchant Navy and then a solicitor's office. But if you ever need somebody to make an angry phone call, bloody hell, she's great at it. Solicitors know how to argue, famously. And Jasmine had now kind of built herself up to that, and she's now a kind of senior tester for Bupa. So we've gone all the way from the Merchant Navy to being a kind of penetration tester for one of the largest health organizations in the world. It's quite impressive. And lastly, Josh. He is the only traditional, I guess, route into the industry that we talk about. Anyone here studying pen testing or cyber at uni? Quite a lot of people, cool. So don't worry, there is hope. You don't have to quit and become a fish scientist or start an apprenticeship. He did a cyber and forensics degree, and Josh was a developer for 2.5 days, which is my favorite story about him. Did his cyber and forensics degree, right, I'm going to go and become a PHP developer. He's a pretty good programmer, bless him, so he did know how to go and kind of do stuff like that. And 2.5 days in, he went, fuck this sucks. Sorry if there's any PHP devs in here, but it wasn't for him. He wasn't cut out for it. He resigned and went and became a junior pen tester. And then he became a check team leader at Apps. In fact, he became a CTL app at 23 years old, which is quite impressive quite an impressive feat to pull off. He's now a principal consultant, and he's a principal kind of principal cybersecurity professional as cybersecurity is now undergoing the professionalization, similarly to like accountancy and engineering and so on and so forth. So it's something that's quite interesting. If you want to have a look at it, we're now I wrote about 15,000 words for my application, which was, given that I never went to uni and my apprenticeship was effectively a tick box exercise, sorry, it's true. It was quite difficult to actually go and select, how do I write an essay? I've written reports before, and I've written 10,000, 20,000 word reports, but yeah, still quite a lot. And you have to write it about yourself, and that's always quite difficult, and you've got to make yourself sound good. But yeah, he's a principal cybersecurity stuff, and again, very, very experienced, a lot of knowledge, came from that background. But all these three people have something in common, and it's that perseverance. When they wanted to go after something, they went for it. You know, Josh passed his CTL app about 6 months before I did, and he did hours and hours of labs every night, hours on the weekends. It was all he was living, it was breathing it, and then as soon as he went and passed, he said, right, here's my revision schedule that I did, and I just lifted it and shifted it and went, right, that's what I'm going to do. And then I passed, and then I've given that revision schedule to other people who have ignored it. No. Lovely. I debated about including the last slide here for quite a while, because it's the kind of least happy bit of this talk. At the start, I walked you through what I did to get in, and you may have noticed that I did a lot of it quite quickly. I was dual CTL at 23. I passed both of those exams, leading engagements against British critical national infrastructure. It's very cool. I did a lot of it very, very quickly. I purposely not included exactly how I went about and did that talk. If you want to see it, I gave it the full version or the old version of this talk at B-Sides Leeds, where I do lay out. What I hadn't quite realized at the time was that what I was doing was really, really unhealthy. I was spending almost every waking moment I spent revising. I wasn't doing any exercise, wasn't eating right. I hadn't got that, my Hearthstone account hadn't been logged into in months and months and months, or years even at one point. All I did was cyber, and it was really, really unhealthy. In fact, it was so unhealthy that I started suffering quite severely from panic attacks in 2021, and those lasted for years. I ended up breaking up with my girlfriend at the time because it was all getting a bit too much, and I drank and ate very heavily. So, if I may, don't follow the same path I did. You can see the results you get from it. I was MX5 at 2020, so at 22 is quite cool, and you will get those results, but at what cost? As I said at the start, I love this industry and I love my job, and I'm much better now. But it's just simply not worth that price. So put in all the hard work that you want, but make sure you're around to experience the benefits of it. Any questions? Yes, mate.
I'm happy to start. Go for it. So, based on what you exactly just said about the increased time frame that you achieved what you did, what would you say from an expectation management perspective, if you expect to achieve what you have, but in a more realistic time frame?
That's a very good question. I don't know, just take it at your own pace. I think some people will naturally just be a bit more inclined or a bit quicker at it. I wouldn't want to put a kind of time frame on it necessarily. I know people who've sort of done it very reasonably in 8 years or so, as opposed to kind of 3 or 4. And by all accounts, they're quite happy with that result, and they didn't lose all their hair and put on 4 stone, let's put it like that. Does that answer your question? Yeah, lovely. Any more for any more? Yes? Oh dear. No, don't ask a difficult one.
What's been your most favourite engagement that you've ever done in your career?
My most favourite engagement? Oh, that is a good question, thank you. My most favourite engagement was a check job that we did, so obviously can't say any names, but we were assessing a printer network. So they just rolled out new printers to an office, and we were allowed to attack basically anything within this network. And the printer software we found two things in it, and I think the really cool one is we found a cross-site scripting vulnerability in one of the pages. It took me, I think it took me like 10, 12, 15 hours across the course of this, course of 2 days to finally prove it. That XSS attack that I did I've released it as a lab, so it's in my GitHub. It's the hardest lab in Dominic, DOM-based cross-site scripting labs. So you can actually go and try it yourself if you really want to. And then the other thing we got was remote code execution, but that's less cool.
Follow-up question. Because you've done a lot of check work, for anyone who's not done check work, what's your favorite data set?
There's some really great ones in the south of England. Any more for any more? Yes, mate.
Why do you like cross-site scripting so much?
Oh, it's JavaScript, mate. JavaScript is like the ugliest, most disgusting language that was dreamt up by a gremlin in the depths of hell. It's awesome. There's so many weird and wonderful ways that you can get it to do the same thing. Everything's an object, so you can influence the global objects of things, and you can get things called prototype pollution, which is if you initialize an object, right? That object sits over here. You create a new object. You influence the prototype of that new object. The other object gets influenced. Why? That makes no sense. Why are you doing that? That's terrible. And then some bright spark had the great idea to turn that into a back-end programming language. What? It's crazy. It's dreamt up by drunk mathematicians. It's awesome. I love it. There you go. Any more for any more? Lovely. Well, thank you very, very much for coming and listening to me.
Thank you, everyone.